All right, ladies and gentlemen, in order to be successful for today's instruction, you need to have out a notebook and a whiteboard. Okay, you do not have a vocab quiz today. Tomorrow you do have a list quiz. Yesterday we finished our Supreme Court cases. We added Wisconsin versus Yoder, and we added Citizens United versus FEC. So that will be added to your list quiz tomorrow. So please make sure you are ready to go for that. Thursday, you have a test, 25 questions, all multiple choice. Your focus and your breakdown are due. Make sure your Supreme Court cases are submitted. You only have one more week of APGov content. Week 13, that's it. And then week 14 is writing week. Yeah. It's fine. We'll be okay. You have no school on Friday of that week, though. Shit.
This Friday?
No, next Friday you have no school.
Oh, this Friday.
I know this Friday would be great.
And next Friday.
That's not ideal. That's okay. Nope. All right, here we go. The headline, your header should be media and interest groups. And your first heading is mass media. Subheading is mass media. Mass media. Mass media is the way most people get their news, get their information. Mass media is the way most people get their news and information. Okay, first one is printed resources. What would be examples of printed resources, Ryson? Newspapers are number one. Then what?
Maybe like sending out like cards to people, like how like.
No, but that's very sweet that you thought that.
like campaign.
Campaign flyers, fine, but no, it's the magazines, my love. Magazines. Magazines are number two. Number one is newspapers. Pamphlets, I guess, would be on there somewhere. I think that's what you're trying to go to. Okay, so those are your printed resources. We're getting away from that because printed resources are very expensive. Write it down. Printed resources are very expensive, which we're getting away from. All right, movies. Now, movies are mass media. Because movies influence our lexicon. Write it down. Lexicon. Movies influence our lexicon. Don't just write down the list I have because I'm going to go through each one and I need you to know certain things about it. What does lexicon mean, Ava? If you had to guess. Movies. How do they affect our lexicon?
They influence our perceptions of.
No. What do we got? Rachel.
They influence people's opinion.
No. What's a lexicon, Hayden?
Isn't that how we talk?
Yeah, how we talk. Raise your hand if you've ever quoted a movie to your friends to prove a point. Yeah, my husband and I speak to each other in Anchorman. Yeah, it's a dumb movie, but it's very quotable, and that's how we relate because we watched it. It came out right as we started dating. Yeah. We've been together 16 years. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, movies influence our lexicon and how we interact with each other, which is why it's part of the mass media. Like, for instance, Henry has never seen a superhero movie. He's never seen a movie, a video. He's never watched a television show. He's never watched a YouTube thing on it. But he knows that if he jumps down and goes to his knees and then stands up, it's a superhero landing. Because why? Because we've said it to him. Like, oh, superhero landing. And he goes all the way down and then stands up. He knows that. So every time he, goes down to the ground, he says, superhero landing. And, that's part of the lexicon. It's part of the... So even though he has never seen it, he knows what it is. Lexicon. All right. Radio. You need to know radio is the first universalizing one. Okay. It's invented... 1890s, everywhere, 1930s. Still popular today. You need to write that down. Raise your hand if you listen to the radio. All right, there's a few of us. Okay. Don't you get tired of making decisions by what music to play? Isn't it nice just like hitting the radio button and then it's just whatever it is? It's one less decision.
Spotify makes playlists for you. So
I
it's
just
like,
listen- I listen
I
to
don't
the same
need a
playlist every
curated
single day.
experience every time, every moment of my life. You don't like the spot?
Hear, like the random songs that are like
And they're
Yeah.
so bad
They're all
every
like on
time.
TikTok.
It's
Yeah.
either like the
Random
newest
songs.
like Dua Lipa song, or it's like another horrible song Justin Bieber made, and like it's bad every single time.
Is he still making music?
Yes.
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 And it's
But, like,
disgusting.
well,
it's cringy.
It's terrible.
Like if you listen to your own music, like you're never gonna be upset.
Yeah, but like, don't you just want to make one less decision?
No.
Sometimes I just like shuffle.
This is a decision that's good.
But
to
no,
make.
that's like a good decision I'd like
Yeah.
to make. This is like a decision that matters to me. It's like a fun decision. Like every other decision you make every day is like, oh my god, okay, I just
A
need
passion.
to this. But like the
Yeah,
music
I
get to
can't.
listen
I
to.
can't. It's literally like 7-minute drive for me. Anyway, here we go. Television, radios, 1930s. They're everywhere. They're still popular to this day. And you need to know the first instantaneous. And by instantaneous, is it really instantaneous? No, but it's the fastest way to get information out. Television is number 2. Is your next one. You need to know television is invented in the 1920s, but it is in the 1930s, everywhere by the 1950s. Invented in the 1930s, everywhere in the 1950s. Okay, you need to know that it will become the most popular of the mass media. It's getting even more popular, if you can imagine. Because how many of us binge watch TV shows now? Oh my god. I watched Hocus Pocus last night. It was awesome. So I'm binge watch. I have to watch it every year, and last night was the night. And it was great. My husband hates it completely and utterly. He's watched it every year for 16 years. He hates it. Here we go. Television. You need to know that 24-hour news will transform mass media and increase bias. Okay. When we talk about new media, we're just going to refer to it as internet and social networks. Okay? Internet and social networks are the new media. When we say internet, we're talking about websites. Let's just be clear. Not just because you went to TikTok, that would be social networks. Is everyone clear? If you're going to like my mom gets all of her news from Facebook. Yeah, I say it with a cringe, just so you know. That's where my mom gets all of her information. Is that a reliable source? No. This woman believes the conspiracy theories. She's not a QAnon person, though, so that's nice. But she is totally into the conspiracy theories because it's on Facebook. It has to be true. That's what I've been told multiple times. So, if you think my mom is cringy, when you say I get my news from TikTok, you're just as cringy. So, if you're on the other side of that spectrum, okay? So, the internet, we're talking about websites, okay? Those websites, the big 3 for news specifically is the New York Times is number 1. Fox News is number 2, and CNN is number 3. Those are your 3 biggest websites for news. I mean, I'm specifically a BuzzFeed kind of girl, but I'm just kidding. I do love BuzzFeed, though, but not for news. They canceled their news broadcast. Anyway, all right, what I would like you to do is I'd like you to turn to your neighbor and tell them what type of news you prefer. And if you are going for internet or social network, you can tell them. You're not going to tell me, so I won't know if you get all your news from TikTok. So turn to your neighbor and tell them where they get your news. Go. Three, 2, 1. Just because you're fighting for your life doesn't mean you need to. Should be.
I don't have news
You don't have to watch the news, but you can process the news.
by watching it or listening. I don't want to do that.
Well, yeah, you got to curate your next list.
Okay, well you're gonna shake your head at me, and you like to curate your own BuzzFeed quizzes on what pop tart you are. So
Oh
you
no!
get your
So
news going on.
obviously I'm strawberry, and I'm so offended you didn't know that. I don't actually do the quizzes, which is really sad. No, I I just like the stupid articles. They keep me up to date on all the dumb things. Moving forward here. Key concepts of the media. These are terms. Do not just write down the list. I want to make sure we know what they are before we go. Okay. Yellow journalism. So far, no one has gotten it, and I don't understand why we don't know this. I feel like you should have been taught since like 5th grade. Now, my mother also needs a lesson on this, but what is yellow journalism? Amelia.
It's like when you publish stuff that's fake. Right?
It's not fake. It's like super biased.
Very biased.
Yeah. Yellow journalism is like super, super biased. Like flagrantly biased. Like they want you to know that they hate them.
I do remember that in English. So
There
that's
you
like
go.
one thing.
Yeah.
That's why
Parts
it's
of our
World War I,
business
right?
around it.
Yeah, they have a ton of it. Okay, so yellow journalism is like incredible amounts of bias. It is, yeah, that's all you need to know. Muckraking. Muckraking is when journalism is scandals. Okay,
They
this
report on scandals?
they only do scandals. It's like tabloids. Like their muckraking is like the belief that journalism is like scandals, and they're like tabloids. They're the ones trying to figure out if Prince William is cheating on Kate, and they spend the whole magazine coming up with different theories of who he's cheating on Kate with, because apparently he's cheating on Kate. My mother's very upset. She's all about this on Facebook. She's sleuthing it out on Facebook, and like all of your tabloids, The Sun, which is a British newspaper, is like notorious for muckraking. All they do is report scandals and tabloids, right, Andrew? Chain ownership, though. Chain ownership is a little bit tricky. Chain ownership is when one company owns multiple brands. That ownership is not always well defined. So, the classic example is the Hearst family. Hearst. Hearst. Okay, so just listen and I'll tell you what to write after this. So, the Hearst family is going to be a middle class family in the 1840s. They are going to start in the 30s. And by the 1840s, they started a newspaper called the New York Times. Have you heard of it? Yeah, you probably have. Anyway, so they start the New York Times, and obviously it becomes a huge success. And so they start buying other media platforms, and they become the first conglomerate of mass media. What that means is they owned, at the peak of the Hearst Empire, which was in the 1950s, they owned the New York Times, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, the San Francisco Chronicle. They owned 10 television channels in the 1950s, which is pretty wild. They owned Time Magazine, People Magazine. They owned Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan, and Teen Bop, which used to be one of the most popular magazines. Now, would you know that Teen Bop was owned by Hearst? No, because they're all under different names. So what that means is that one company can manipulate all these different viewers and readers in different avenues without them seeing a clear connection. Can we agree? Okay? And that's what chain ownership is when one company owns multiple subsidiaries. That is the way it's done today. Write down. This is the common style used today. An easy example that's easier to track is Fox. I don't know if you know, but there's a Fox channel on television. It's not Fox News. It's called Fox. It's Fox 13. Okay? Fox 13 is literally channel 13 on like cable news, and it's like pretty in the middle. It's pretty close to central, as in it's not left, it's not right. It's pretty close to central. It's a little left leaning, but it's pretty close to central. Fox also owns Fox Sports, Fox Sports 1, Fox Deportes. They have like 15 sports channel. They also own Fox News. Yes, that makes sense. They own like 15 or 16 channels today. They own a NFL Day. Okay, they own coverage on the NFL, so they've been around for a very long time. That's what we're talking about chain ownership. Now, they kept everything Fox. It's an Australian family that owns it, and I can't think of their name. Does anyone know who it is? Murdoch. Yes, the Murdoch family. Yes, couldn't figure that out all day. All right, the Murdochs own it. They're Australian. They own all of these companies. Fox News is their biggest and most profitable one. Second one is Fox, which is where they have like their NFL contracts. All right. The big three is television, radio, and newspapers. So anytime you hear big three, that's what they're referring to. Television, radio, newspapers. Okay, going quickly back to chain ownership. For chain ownership, you're starting to see that Jeff Bezos, the guy who owns Amazon, he now owns the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal. Okay, obviously he owns Amazon, and he is in the process of trying to buy another newspaper as well. So that would be just another example of chain ownership. Okay, editorial. What is an editorial, Chase? This says editorializing, which we're going to get there, but I found out all day today people don't know what an editorial is. What is an editorial? Where is it found?
Like newspaper?
Yeah, it's in a newspaper. What is an editorial, Lily?
Is it like when someone's like writing about something?
Well, yeah, because it's in a newspaper. Okay, an editorial is when the editor, which is why it's called a... Look at you. The editor writes their opinion about any topic they want. So, an editorial is when the editor gets to write their opinion on anything they want. Period. Write this down. It used to be, and you should underline used to be, the only place in the newspaper you found opinion. So it made the editorial special. It was the only time that you actually got to see what the journalist really thought about something. Okay? What do you think editorializing means, Maggie?
It's when opinion is found in more places.
Yes. Editorializing is when journalists' opinions are found in articles. As editorializing is when it's no longer just found in the editorial page, it is now found on every page. Okay, bias. You can't talk about this week unless you talk about bias. Will, what's bias?
It's when like it's like your opinion when you put it into
It's not opinion, because if it was opinion, it would be opinion. What's a bias?
it's like a favor towards something.
Yes, you favor typically left or right, conservative or liberal. Everything you do is kind of directed towards that. Okay, who are two examples of bias you can point out? Hilty, give me two examples of bias.
When someone writes about like the president that they like.
Short. Let's keep it simple, stupid. Give me a television channel and tell me what their bias is.
CNN, liberal.
Liberal, and then give me another one.
Fox, Republican.
There you go. Okay, so CNN and Fox News are classic examples. CNN is to the left, and Fox News is to the right. Okay, those are biases. Everything, like, you very rarely hear Fox News say anything positive about Joe Biden. Yes, it's mostly just a hate fest on Joe Biden. Actually, after Biden was in Israel a couple weeks ago, they actually had Britt Hume said a couple nice things about Joe Biden. But don't worry, the other commentators, tampered that down really quick. But they did say a couple nice things on CNN. Okay. So when we talk about biases, okay, you have to understand, think of it like a spectrum. You have the middle, which is center, okay, which means they're playing it fair. Then you have to the left, and then you have to the right. Fox News is significantly to the left. CNN is to the right. CNN is to the left, but they're not like crazy off the edge. Is everyone clear on that? MSNBC is like way extreme. not like crazy extreme, but they're further left than CNN. CNBC is also further left than CNN. Fox News is very right. However, OAR, have you seen OAR? They are beyond Fox News. So it's all a different spectrum. All right, adversarial press is your last one for this one. What is an adversary, Ryson? Adversary.
Like an ad.
No. Ebba, what's an adversary?
Like an enemy.
Yeah, it's an enemy. Okay? So adversarial press, what do you think it is, Ebba?
Like maybe when you're like criticizing another news.
Yeah. So who do you think Fox News hates more than anyone? Yes, absolutely. They have an adversarial press. CNN hates Fox News, but they don't like talk about Fox News that often. They'll refer to the other guys frequently because CNN's number 2 in the world in America. Fox News is number 1. They get way more viewership than CNN, almost by like 2 million more people a day. So it's like a pretty big jump from number 1 to number 2. Fox News is number 1. CNN is number 2. They'll say every once in a while the other guys, and every once in a while they'll show a clip from Fox News where they're like, look at this, and then they'll make a couple comments, but they don't really do it. Fox News does it all the time. They do it all the time. They're constantly talking about like CNN's coverage versus theirs and all that stuff. Clearly their viewers like it. All right. Radio news is your next subheading. Okay, when we talk about radio, you need to know in the 1930s. Okay, it's going to start with things like FDR's fireside chats. Okay, the biggest thing is that everyone is listening to the same thing. That's like the biggest thing that you need to understand. Today, are we all watching the same shows? No, some of you are watching things that I've never heard of. I'm watching things you may not have heard of because there's so many options. When radio first starts in the 1930s, there's really only one option, and that way everyone is getting the same information. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Pro-con. Okay, today you need to know that radio is very conservative. Radio tilts very much to the right, which is fascinating, isn't it? It's all their AM talk radio. It's very conservative because pretty much every other media outlet is liberal. So it's really important that you understand that talk radio is very conservative. You obviously have heard Sean Hannity's name, whether you actually know who it is or not. Sean Hannity is like the primetime guy for Fox News. He started on talk radio. That's how he got his start. And now he's like a headliner for Fox News. Liberal, there's only one really liberal radio station, and it's called NPR, National Public Radio. They do the little small desk concerts. Have you ever seen those? Yeah. They're on YouTube, which is funny because it's a talk radio, but here we are. All right, television. When we talk about television, there's a couple things that you need to know. We have things called network news, cable news, and comedy news. Okay, when we talk about network news, that's CBS, NBC, ABC, and Fox. Fox is Fox 13, not Fox News. Is everyone clear on that? So just because it says Fox, it's not what we're talking about. So when we talk about network news, like CBS is the most central of the most popular news channels here in the United States. So if you wanted as unbiased, it's not unbiased, it's still tilted slightly to the left, they're going to be your most straightforward news source. That's what Pew Research has told us, not Samantha Bennett's opinion. It's what Pew Research, which is one of the most centered, most agreed upon research thing. They say CBS is the most even keeled, but it's still slightly to the left. NBC is definitely to the left. ABC is definitely to the left, and not heavily, but they're slightly skewed. Okay, you need to know that network news are the most balanced. Network news channels are the most balanced, but they all typically lean to the left. So, they're not centered, they're just left of center. Okay. Then you have cable news, like C-SPAN, CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. All of those fall under cable news. You need to know that these are very biased. They are very biased. Cable news is where you get most of your bias, okay? Because these things are 24-hour news sources. So what do they have filling their airwaves? Commentators. That's what really pulls the bias in, is commentators. Yeah. So like CNN is obviously left bias. CNN is like to the left. It's definitively to the left. It's not like just off center. It's left. But further left than CNN is CNBC. MSNBC is like super left. Super left. Like Rachel Maddow, do you know her? Anyway, she's very popular. She is like super left. Okay. Then you have Fox News, which is definitively to the right. And then you have OAR, which is way further right than Fox News, if you could imagine. Yeah. Okay, so that's when you start getting really pulled out into your spheres. And then you have comedy news, like Saturday Night Live, The Daily Show, which just came back last week. There's a bunch of other ones now. Okay, Colbert isn't there anymore. These are all tilted which way? Left, for sure. Do you think Saturday Night Live is going conservative here? Not a shot in hell. They're all going left, and they're pretty far left. They're definitely pretty far left. Okay, so if you are looking for the most reliable news sources, you need to go to network news. They're going to be more towards the middle, even though everything on television typically is leaning right. The most centered ones are going to be your network news. They're not perfect. They are not unbiased, but those are going to be the closest. If you want very politically skewed, then you need to go to your cable news, and they're either going to pull you left or they're going to pull you right significantly. All right, here we go on your whiteboard. Okay, when they say internet, they're thinking you're going to a website. They'll say social media if they're saying like TikTok. Does that make sense? So, ooh, interesting. Okay, the number one is what, Ryson? Local TV. So write it down.
You say local, you mean like
Like Bay New 9, Fox 13 is local in the morning, stuff like that. So, local news. Now, if you look at this diagram, I want you to write this down in your notebook, okay? This diagram does not add up to 100% because people get their news sources from multiple places. So, local news is where most people get their news, okay? If you've ever been to the gym typically has CNN on, but they also have a lot more local news channel because people like seeing what's happening in their areas. You know, I would write down that local news is where people are getting it. No, I wouldn't write down all of this. Then it's going to be your CNN and your Fox News is. Okay? Your national networks are going to be number 2. So local networks. Is this a good thing or a bad thing that we focus on local news? It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because it allows us to keep our own politicians nearby on check. Because who has a bigger influence on us, Castor or Biden? Castor has a much bigger influence on our lives. We learned that from the pandemic, yes? Our governors, our local governors have more impact than the president. All right, how much time do I have?
Like
7 minutes? No. Okay. Here we go. You need to know, ladies and gentlemen, privately owned media is how American technology goes. Well, a little bit of both. I got questions coming up. Okay, so American media is privately owned. What does that mean, Phillips?
It's not owned by the government.
Yes. Who has give me a country that owns the media? North Korea, China, Russia. BBC is actually run by the British government. But that's not their only media broadcast. In Russia, everything is controlled by the state. In China, everything is controlled by the state. In Iran, everything is controlled by the state. By the way, why did I mention those countries? We're going to learn about it. Okay? Britain has the BBC, which is controlled by the government, but it's not the only broadcast available. So you can turn the next channel and they talk shit about the British government all the time. So you get both perspectives. Okay? You need to know that the United States is unique in this. It gives us more freedom to hear criticisms. Okay, you do need to be aware of that. Because we have it, we're able to criticize the government more freely. But who gets to control what's on the channels? Yeah, random people who just happen to have a lot of money. Is that a good thing? No, it's really not that great of a thing. So it's pro cons. Everything in life is pro cons. Do we want the U.S. government having control of our media either? No. So it's kind of it's a interesting kind of system. All right. So a couple big terms that you need to know when we talk about media trends. You need to know the difference between a press release and a press briefing. So a press release is a document stating factual information about something that has occurred. Like, for instance, when the information came out that Matthew Perry died, it was a press release. What do they call them, the people who manage the media stuff? Their agent released a press release stating that, confirmed by LA County Sheriff's Office, that Matthew Perry was found dead in his Malibu home or wherever he was. Okay? That's a press release. It's very factual. It is very straight to the point. And at this time, please leave Matthew Perry's family alone or whatever else it said. I don't know. I'm not devastated by it. Do you people care?
I am.
Are you?
I love Friends. He's a villain. Very sad.
The fact that you people are watching Friends and the amount of time you consume it, it blows my mind. How many times have you watched the whole series?
Just once.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
actually, I don't be watching it. Like, periodically, sometimes I'll just turn it on.
Okay. Then we have press briefings. So a press release is a single document that gets published and is given access to by other people. It's a single thing. A press briefing is when a person, a spokesperson, comes out and stands before the media, states whatever they're going to state, and then typically asks questions. Okay, so with a press briefing, it's like what you expect at like the White House, right? The press secretary comes out and she says Joe Biden is heading to Israel on this day, and then the press are like, what is he going to say? What is he going to do? All those types of things. That's a press briefing. It's an interaction. Write it down. It is an interaction between the media and the individual. Okay, it's usually less than 10 minutes. Okay, and a press conference is when the person will stand there as long as it takes to answer every question. You typically have this with like movies. When movies come out, they usually do press conferences where they sit there and people can ask them questions about the movie. They're sitting there with a bunch of the actors, and they're all kind of palling around. You see press conferences at like Comic-Con and stuff like that, where they have the whole panel of people up there and they'll talk about it, stuff like that. So press conferences, there's long. It's usually about an hour is what a press conference usually is, and it's full-on interactions between it. All right, I'm done. Bless you.